Hello, Studio 108 Seekers and Sages. I'm so glad you're joining us today. And I'm sitting with Lisa Turner, who's an astrologist and a yoga teacher. And a little birdie says, as she says goodbye to her folks at Half Moon Yoga, and I know they're very sad to see you go.
They are.
They are. Down the road, we might be saying hello to her at Studio 108 Independence. So, yeah, so meet these friends. What's going on Sky High, Lisa?
So I'm really excited. I'm sure that most people have kind of heard the buzz of Jupiter ingressing into Pisces. Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, so if you were to reflect back 12 years ago, Jupiter entered this area of your life.
2009, 10?
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
2010.
2010.
Is that 12 years? How is 12 counted? Let's not get tangled in it. Oh, 9 or 10, somewhere like that. Do your math.
Yeah. One of the beautiful things about a Jupiter cycle is that it expands the area of life that it visits. Because that's its job. It's known and symbolically as the guru, the teacher, good luck, good fortune, abundance. Sorry, the pollen stick has hit me, so I have a cough drop in my mouth. So Jupiter likes to deal with matters of philosophy and travel, right? And when it enters Pisces, it brings now in the expansion of Piscean themes. So the dreamer, emotion, compassion. So I think what we're going to start to find.
Did you say good luck?
Good luck and good fortune.
And good fortune.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even a little cash.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Opportunities.
That would be nice. Love the opportunities. Pisces necessarily isn't a materialistic sign, right? Because they're that universal love and giving. So yes to money, especially if Jupiter makes an aspect to Venus in a really nice way to bring up some money flow. But that would be more of like your personal chart.
Okay, that's why we have this stuff. The nuances are what it's all about.
So I think we're going to see that sense of interconnectedness, the universal love, the Good Samaritan, the joy and abundance of being human. My hope is that people start to connect from a place of love again, right?
Right. Oh, how nice that is. Like that makes me think of summers and festivals and outdoor picnics and family gatherings, and maybe permission to see each other's faces.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that most astrologers, we are astrology geeks in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I turned on a Tony Robbins documentary. I had a chart in hand. And I'm watching this documentary, and it's this group of people, right? So Jupiter's been in Aquarius, which we've seen groups kind of explode in protest, right? Very Aquarian, standing up for the rights of, what is the word I want to use? Those that need it, right? The underdog, right? Right.
In a really visible, audible way, like not just behind the scenes quietly, but like out
exactly.
In the
Jupiter expands. It's a big way.
Yeah.
If you ever know a very Jupiterian person, Jupiter rules my chart. It's a big presence.
Yeah.
You know, if Jupiter is at their ascendant, maybe they're really tall. It's big. It's jovial.
Yeah.
So we've seen these groups, lots of groups pop up. Okay, Jupiter and Aquarius. So I'm watching this documentary, and I'm seeing these groups of people come together, which in my mind, I'm like, wow, very Jupiter, Aquarius. And then as they tell their stories, you see their emotion. And not only do you see their emotion, but you see everybody else begin to cry, begin to just visually express. They don't know these people.
Right.
But there's this divine love, this connection, this universal love. And you see people, strangers, go up to you and like mounds of people hug one another and cry with one another. to me, that's to feel the energetic change.
Got you. Between the Jupiter and Aquarius, being strangers in a room, kind of like all standing together for a common purpose, but not really connected.
Right.
And then into Pisces would be this emotional outpouring of connection between each other.
Right.
We don't just see each other and talk to each other, now we feel each other.
Correct. We
Gotcha.
see each other in each other.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what yoga's about, right?
Right. Seeing the divine in each other.
Seeing the divine in each other.
And divine is really, I'm foreshadowing. Divine's a really important word in our conversation today.
It is. Yeah. It is. And one of the things that I encourage everyone during this Jupiterian cycle and kind of around this eclipse that's coming up, and I'm going to touch base on that a little bit as well, is what's your God's story, right? So the word God, some people hear the word and they think church, and they think, oh man, Catholicism, Christianity, no, nothing to do with it.
Yeah, like we have all kinds of push-pull attachments.
But God,
Versions.
but anyone's version of God or what God means to them could be connected to nature, could be just changing the word with divine or source or spirit. And they connect more to that word and they feel that within themselves. So I really encourage everybody, number one, to reflect on what their God story is, because Jupiter in Pisces, for me, is about that connection, that God story. You know, this, when we feel compassion and love for someone, that's God, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something deeper than this surface level human stuff.
Exactly, right. Because, you know, the 12th house, the Neptune house, so astrology has classical astrology and modern astrology. So Pisces used to originally be ruled by Jupiter. So right now in the sky, there are 4 planets in their home sign. So they're working very strong. Jupiter in Pisces is one of them. Now the modern ruler is Neptune, and eventually next year, Jupiter and Neptune will meet. But Jupiter in Pisces is that 12th house where we dissolve the ego, right? Where we connect to spirit.
Yeah.
That's what we do in that 12th house.
Yeah. And 12 is like the last house around the cycle. And so it's, even if you think about it developmentally through your life, that we come in with this need to define ourselves and create ego, need to express it and work with it, and we need to share it with others and offer it out into the world. And then when we come like towards the 12th house, like that's closure of life. Then we're coming back to our God source, God relationship. And that's like to have that pinnacle at the end of the life, to be able to travel that journey and have some connection there is really a beautiful way to end the human cycle. So this 12th house is like getting a glimpse of that and an opportunity to check in and be sure you're on track, that we have an opportunity now, and Jupiter is saying, hey, look in.
Yes.
Let's feel in.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of sense of purpose in that. I use the word destiny a lot, like how am I a member of the whole?
Yes.
Yeah, and serving.
Yes, I mean, we can put in whatever metaphor and analogy, you know, we're not just the drop of rain, we're the entire ocean. Right now, we are interconnected. And I think this Jupiter cycle highlights that. So that's really exciting to look forward to. You know, there is a shadow side of Jupiter and Pisces. I like to always think that people are going to resonate with the higher side of a sign and a cycle. That's not necessarily true. Sometimes we ebb and flow, and we dip a little bit. It's good to be aware. It is. So sometimes, you know, I don't like to say it can be not necessarily a good thing to be overly compassionate, but sometimes if you're overly compassionate or overly emotional, that doesn't work out so well. Maybe we don't have good boundaries then to have that check-in. If you are someone who struggles with boundaries, the Jupiter in Pisces may intensify that, where you're now going to be more aware to just to notice that as the transit kind of works its way into your life. You are prone to escapism. Jupiter might expand upon those things. Again, just having an awareness to it.
I'm not a Pisces, but I said to my husband the other day, well, he said, how did you think of that? I'm like, well, I do like to daydream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you may be daydreaming, and that's beautiful and wonderful, just to be mindful of it, not to stay in the dream, to come back to reality. Maybe you use the transit to heighten your sense of creativity, but then give it legs, give it a direction.
Bring it in.
Mm-hmm. Jupiter, I think I mentioned earlier, is a teacher planet, the guru, right? And as we reflect upon our God story and that connection that we have to God within ourselves and then outside of ourselves, it is a relationship. And I find that often we have teachers, right?
Right.
I mean, if you think of a religion, we have our ministers and our priests and our gurus and our swamis and our shamans, these
Rabbis.
Our rabbis. They bring us closer to our spiritual evolution, right? For our purpose, for our growth. And as they do that, sometimes they challenge us, right? They challenge our beliefs, which is very Jupiter. And they have us question. And I think
They
that
challenge our integrity too.
Yeah.
Like, are you in the shadow expression? Are you sharing your highest possibility here?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, teachers come in all different shapes and forms. Eckhart Tolle, I read his first book. I think it was the second book, A New Earth.
Yeah.
That was my teacher. Reading that book shook me up and started to really open me up to what I needed. Prior to that, I was praying, I want a spiritual teacher. I need a guru. I need a teacher. And they have that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And here, I stop and I look and I have all of these people around me teaching me this philosophy that I had just read in this book unknowingly. Whether it is a podcast, whether it is Tony Robbins, that I don't know personally, but if you've ever watched something, they kind of shake you up and they have you self-reflect on your spiritual journey.
Some of them really are the hardest people,
Mhm.
like the exes and the in-laws and the kids, like the people that really
Yes.
are challenging for us are teachers.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure, you have them in school. Well, when you do have them in school, you have that teacher that touched your life or that coach that just said one little sentence to you and it changed everything for you. And yes, our relationships are our biggest teachers as we work towards this eclipse, which, by the way, is on May 26th at 5 degrees Sag. And during this Jupiter cycle, pay attention to the teachers. It is a lunar eclipse, so we are looking at the other. We're looking at our relationships in our lives as they reflect back to us. Eclipses do run in 18.5-year cycles. This is where you're messed with my mind.
Okay.
Because 2003 is when this cycle of eclipses started. So I had this year in my mind. So when you said that,
The
I was
12
like,
years,
what?
yeah.
So 2003, we had this eclipse cycle highlighting, if you know your chart, this area of life again through the eclipse.
It's always difficult for me to look back, and I can get some big landmark things along my timeline, but I wish I had been better. Like, if you have journals, go back in your journals and take a look at what you were mulling over in 2003, and you can see.
And especially if you know your charts,
yeah,
then it helps you kind of fine tune that area of life. One of the things that I did write down, two things actually, is that a spiritual teacher contributes to your soul's growth, your soul's purpose, your spiritual evolution. As part of this process, we do have goals and we do want to make the most out of this life. And when we connect to our God story, we know that there is a plan. And I'm going to use, again, like a watching the stream or watching, leaves go through the breeze, right? You can see it flow. And we are flowing towards our story and in our story. But when we have that inner connection to God or to source or the divine, it's sweeter, it's easier, it feels different.
There's
in your body
a context that it does feel different. Like I used the word visceral before.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it's a really visceral feeling to think about your goals and then to think about your destiny and your sense of purpose and your life mission. Like they're two different strata and they hit the body in two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like this Jupiter will be in Pisces until the end of July.
Yes, to the end of July, and then it'll retrograde back into Aquarius. So we kind of get, they call it like that sneak preview.
Right.
Of what that Jupiter story is going to be. And if you do know your chart, if you have a lot of water, you're going to know that Jupiter is going to touch on all of that water, and expand it and grow it.
So this is a really good time.
It is.
I was saying to a class because it is a good time, and then there are all these activations that are super strong. Like the eclipse is coming is a really strong eclipse.
It is a really strong eclipse because you have this eclipse, right? Sorry. You have this eclipse of the sun in Gemini, and the moon is going to be in Sag. So the ruler of the eclipse is Jupiter. Jupiter is sitting at the top of everything, so it's squaring the eclipse. So what I feel like is going to happen, my handy dandy notes, is that things are going to feel bigger, a sense of urgency around it.
Yeah.
So remember, Jupiter expands. There's also a sense of greater healing, right? Pisces likes to heal. We have that sense of compassion. Because it's a square, it feels like a test. So part of that test could be, how much are we willing to change direction?
Yeah. And this is why, like, I did really intentional work on the new moon, and there's still time to do this. I feel like when things get big and the activations start firing in, if I'm able to be really clear and grounded in my intentions, then those things that happen are pushing me forward to where I want to go. Versus if I'm murky and muddy and kind of confused and unaware, then those big things that happen, they kind of batter me around. I feel like I'm not quite.
And think about expression.
I don't know what's going on.
And think about how that Jupiter and Pisces can do, right? If you're going back and forth, you're confused.
Right.
So you're doing that shadow side of Pisces versus trusting.
Yeah.
This is where I'm being guided. This is where I'm being led. This is where my faith lies.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And that's another thing that I say a lot is as long as I do my practices, everything's going to be fine. As long as I say my prayers, everything's going to be fine. As long as I've got my God relationship.
Exactly.
Everything's going to be fine. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's all going to work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that God relationship can be anything. It can be sitting quietly and just quiet and connecting to nature.
Running, going for a run, having time where you can, offload and get clear and feel connected.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, again, for everyone to kind of explore what that God story is. Where is God in my life?
Yeah.
What does that mean to me?
Yeah, I hear the God story, and then I hear be aware of your teachers.
Yes.
So be aware, be alert of the lessons and the clues and the cues that are coming through that help you. So like, what was the little story about the man who was drowning and was praying,
Oh my
God
gosh.
save me,
I
God
love that
save me.
story. I
And the
love that
helicopter
story.
goes down and they're passing and they're like, can we help you? No, God is saving me. It's like, yeah, like we get cues and clues. That's the God.
I'm teaching an eclipse series, and when I look at charts, I don't have air in my chart, so I really have to physically feel what I want to say or how I want to express things or the message that I want to get through. And it was open to the vastness of God's messages.
Mm-hmm.
That's the feel.
Mm-hmm.
Stay alert. Who are the teachers who are starting to come into your life and change your direction of truth, of faith, of compassion, of trusting?
Yeah.
And that open you up and encourage your soul's expansion, your soul's growth,
Yeah.
your purpose.
Yeah.
So with this eclipse, notice that changing of the direction.
Change is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
So just, if we're open to it, we can be on top of it. It can be a really fun celebration of what's new and what's next.
We might have to sort through a lot of emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter is going to be in Pisces, so yeah, it's big,
Yeah.
right? Neptune's also going to square Mercury and Venus, so you can feel a sense of miscommunication, vagueness, uncertainty, right? Again, very Piscean. So the eclipse might bring a little confusion around it.
And what's the exact date on the eclipse?
May 26th.
So May 26th is the eclipse, but Jupiter will be in Pisces until the end of July. So we have a nice window of opportunity to work with this.
Yeah. You may also notice that we need to get out of our head, trust our intuition, trust the bigger plan. You may have a lot of options to choose from, right? Which may be why we feel a sense of confusion. That happens, gotta trust. It's why I keep going back to that God story. You have to trust in that story of where we're leading, where we're headed.
And I think we're less used to trusting our feelings, but like if it feels right, that's a pretty good clue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And another thing that I do is I take it one step at a time. So what's the one step? And if the one step feels right, take the one step and then wait.
Mm-hmm.
And feel again what the next step maybe be. When
I
that
love
step
that
feel
advice.
right, take one step. And then that gives you a lot of option. Like you're not stuck. You don't have to leap to the end
Well,
of it.
and when you have a lot of emotion flowing or you have a lot of confusion going, you can get overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm totally guilty.
Yeah.
I have to stop, breathe, reset, then take that step.
What's one step?
Totally
What's one
agree.
step? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I really do like about this eclipse is Saturn is really nice with the eclipse. So meaning that the direction that we're being asked to go or the direction that we're changing, it has roots, it has forms. So the ideas, the creativity, the things that start coming up, it's sound.
Yeah, there's going to be some structure.
There's going to be structure to support it. We have been working with that whole Saturn square Uranus, that old versus new, testing, challenging our sense of worth, our sense of security, possibly commitment, right? Just throwing that out there. If you're not a person who's been fearful of committing again, maybe you're divorced, Jupiter gets into Pisces, Jupiter starts making aspects to that Venus and you're feeling love. And you're like, but oh man, do I really want to do that commitment thing again, right? A little uncertainty, just to kind of give you an idea of how that can kind of move around with the eclipse. Now, all of that is very much dependent upon your chart. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that feeling of old versus new and what do I need to change, those are we're all working with that. And we have been. but do dream, do enjoy what comes up.
Maybe just relax a little. I mean, I feel like if Jupiter's on my side, relax a little. Let her bring you the good luck. Like when I'm holding on and I'm really resistant because I've been hit with the stick so many times, then Jupiter's just like, girl, I'm trying to help you.
And it is so true. I have a very hard time relaxing, very hard time. And as I was sitting and reflecting and meditating on this Jupiter in Pisces and very much how it is going to affect my own life, my own chart, that reminding myself to trust the plan. Like, I can breathe.
Back to the God story.
Back to the God story. It really is. And I felt like really redundant as I was typing my notes, and I'm like, but no, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It is the God story. It is the trust, right? We want to live and we aspire to live these abundant lives, full of riches. But then what happens when we get it? I don't necessarily know if we could truly feel it and enjoy it unless we are connected to the support.
Yeah.
And
the awesomeness.
Exactly.
That
you feel it. You feel that
so that you can,
and
this
it's
is
not
great.
worried about it's going to go away.
Right.
Just always being connected
and not
to
worried
it.
I don't deserve it. Like,
yes, exactly.
This is we're in relationship with this. And I feel like, there's our individual lives and then there's the collective.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is happening in the collective too. So give the world a chance. Give the world a chance.
Yes, I kind of got chills on the collective part. Because I want to reflect back on the Tony Robbins show. Notice how you start interacting differently with your neighbors, with the people that you are in relationship with. Notice if that softens. Notice if you see them differently. Because I do believe that we will.
We've come through a really deep mud puddle.
We have
separation and
have.
labels.
Yes.
Like all of it.
And I feel like as we move into this next chapter, I think that you're going to see people hugging again.
Yeah. Even people who disagree.
Exactly. I think that, I'm hoping anyways, our sense of compassion comes back. And again, that universal love.
And I know that it won't come back unless I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I let down some of my fears and my boundaries and my guard.
You be the teacher.
Yeah.
You be the teacher. And each religion, if I ever had to do it over again, I would study world religion. I have a very Sagittarian chart, so beliefs and truth and religion and spirituality, they're very dominant in my chart, and I've always just gravitated towards it, even when I was little. And each religion has their Jesus story, right? Of this person that was the embodiment of universal love and unconditional love. And that fascinates me.
And we forget that these elevated spiritual masters are our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of if you're within a belief system, Hinduism, and all the variety of deities that express different aspects of God, they are teaching and they are awakening that within you.
Exactly.
And under Christianity, Jesus is a teacher, and he's awakening that within you.
Exactly.
And this is today. This is right here in front of us today.
Yeah,
so
it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. I love the direction that we're going to, at least that I feel that we're going into. And I hope that everyone awakens that God story within them. you know?
And then
Even
read it again, the vastness of the messages.
Yes,
The
so
vastness
it's
of the-
open to the vastness of God's messages, in whichever form they come. Nature, a teacher, a book, a podcast, a neighbor. Someone's teaching you part of that story, you know? I think it's gonna be a beautiful journey. And one of the other things, you know, that if you do start that journey and reflecting on your God story, maybe you don't have a God story. Maybe your God story was tainted very early on. You know, I was raised Catholic, and there was this man in the sky who was whipping it along. You better do not do this and not do that. And it changed for me. It changed for me over the years, and I feel like I am more connected to God, to source, than I ever was. And I can't say that I connect to one religion. And I'm okay.
Like, it's very intimate and personal. Even if you go to a particular religious community and you worship within that on a very regular basis, every single person sitting there has their own unique, intimate, personal relationship within that structure. So it's not ever anything but, I mean, that's the point, really.
Exactly.
So be your little drop in the ocean as best you can, but remember, we're all in the ocean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Love that.
Absolutely. So,
so we're all set. Jupiter,
Pisces, teachers. So we kind of touched on it before, and I wrote it down, and I kind of wanted to read it out, and I pulled this out of Robert Hand's astrology book. And he talks about how Pisces symbolizes the most difficult stage in human evolution, the transcendence of self. Aquarius is the self-submerged or identified with a social group, often resulting in an inflated ego in a humble disguise. So Pisces is not about the social group, but to the universe itself. And the reason why I wrote it down and I wanted to bring it up is because of kind of what we're seeing playing out on the world stage. And this sense of separateness as we see all of these groups pop up. And as we start to shift the energy into Pisces, that it's not about the group. It's about that selflessness, that connection to the universe, that connection to all of us.
From a lot of times groups start out with that ideal, and then human nature sort of infiltrates it.
Because it's still attached to the ego.
Yeah.
And Pisces is very much, it's the dissolution of the ego. And notice that, you know, with the shadow side as well, because sometimes we can be too giving. But
we have our work to do.
We do.
Eyes open.
The vastness of God's messages in all different shapes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And hopefully I'll see you soon.
Happy eclipse.
Yes.
And bring your mat. Practice with Lisa. Awesome. Thank you so much. Namaste. Thanks for following.